Okay, we are going to do something just a little bit different today. You often hear me say, to find out about this stuff and to know what's what, go into an antique mall and get your hands on it. So I'm going to do a series of videos inside of an antique mall, and I'm going to focus on one type of item. So glass, pottery, kitsch. I don't even know what I'm going to do yet. It's going to depend on, kind of what I see. But I am planning to definitely do glass, pottery, and mid-century. And then we're going to see what other things we can find. I want to show you also some true antiques. What does that mean? What's the collectability? We're going to really just take a deep dive into this stuff. And hopefully you will find it out in the wild where you can pick it up and sell it for a profit. That's the goal. All right, let's get inside. We are at the Charleston Antique Mall in Las Vegas, and let's go see what the dealers have stocked their booths with. Let's talk about American Brilliant cut glass for a moment, or ABCG. So there's a lot of debate on when the American Brilliant period was. It does go all the way into about the 1920s, kind of going into the 1930s, but it got cut short there, and that is because the lead was needed for ammunition. And so the American Brilliant period really for the collectors is like the 1860s to the 1880s. That's the heyday of the glass. The glass made after that still has that cut, but it's not the same sharpness as those early pieces. It's not the same thickness. Different techniques started to get used to cut the glass, so there's a distinct difference. This piece, while sharp and cut, is definitely not one of the earlier pieces, just based on the lack of sharpness, for lack of a better word. But it's still American Brilliant. It's still a nice piece. The other thing is, American Brilliant is always going to be very thick glass, and this is thick, but like the true American Brilliant period would have been about that thick. Super thick glass, and very heavy and sharp. So that's one of the things you want to look for if you're looking for the cut glass. So I wanted to show you just some results that come up when I search for American Brilliant cut glass on eBay. And I sort by highest price because I want you to see the potential of what this type of glass has to offer. You can see there's over 2,000 results. So this is a sought after glass. And obviously the bigger, more unusual, more rare pieces and sizes are going to be your top selling. But they are out there, so you don't want to be passing them by. The other thing I want you to not worry about is being able to identify the pattern. Most of this glass is going to be impossible to identify the pattern, and that's okay. You can still kind of look at the features of it. You can look at the little motifs of it, put some of those in. This glass also was not signed for the most part. It didn't start becoming signed until after the American Brilliant glass kind of caught on. Because what the American cut glass makers were doing is trying to mimic the expensive European cut glass makers. So they didn't want to sign their pieces and give away that it wasn't a European piece. So the early pieces are not signed, and that's really desirable. It was only after it caught on, gained popularity, that now companies wanted to put their name to it. And finding the mark on these is a little hard to do. It's a very tiny acid etched mark usually, and you kind of have to turn and change the angle and let the light shine a little differently sometimes to find that little mark. So you always look, because you don't know if a piece is marked or not until you give it a really good look. But don't be in despair if there's no mark and if you can't find the pattern, because this stuff sells just on the fact that it is American Brilliant cut glass. The other cool thing is most people working in the back of a thrift store do not know a piece of American Brilliant cut glass from a piece of Princess House crystal, and they price accordingly. So you want to be on the lookout out in the wild for this amazing glass. Have you ever seen a cardinal of love? We're very familiar with the bluebird of happiness, which I'll show you in a moment, but I found this with its original label. It is signed by Ward. I can't remember who the first name was, but it does say Leo Ward, I believe it is. There you go. And this is a cardinal of love. Who knew? We have little bluebirds of happiness. So this one's a Leo Ward. Is that for the pair? No. I was going to say, if that's for the pair, I'm grabbing those up. These are 1996. And this one, let's see if you are the same guy. Oh, look, you've got your little sticky doodle. Nope, this one's a Ron Ray. So we got a Leo Ward and a Ron Ray. Looks like the difference is, this is cool that both makers are right here. This one's a little lighter in color. This one's a little darker. Other than that, they sure look pretty much the same. I think, no, it looks like the same mold. Looks like the same mold to me. This is some glass that is fairly common, doesn't have a real high resale value. The colors are good though. Cranberry glass is always going to be a seller. It's just a matter of how much can you get for it and what is the shipping hassle involved. They've got 25 on this piece, which is about right. This is that aqua, some call it turquoise. It's a ribbed pattern. Again, you know, this is a big bulky piece and it's fairly common. So I look for things that are a little more unique when I'm looking for resale glass. Let's talk about Carnival glass. There are as many patterns of Carnival glass as there are, I was going to say stars in the sky, but that's probably not quite accurate, but there's a lot. The patterns are fairly easy to look up. You can say what the motif is and just Google Carnival glass bowl tulip and do an image search, and you'll usually be able to find out who done it. This is a marigold. Marigold is not a super desirable color, but it's like the classic Carnival glass color. I'm not exactly sure who does this, but by the time I edit this video, I will know who does this one and the value. This is Dugan in the marigold, of course. It is the wildflower, and you can see they put tulip in that title too. This one is a Northwood. Now you can see this has a cobalt blue base. All of these Carnival glass pieces do have a base color, and you can look on the bottom for that. This is Bohemian cut to clear crystal, and it's actually 2 layers of glass, a colored layer and then the clear layer, and they cut down to that clear layer, hence the name cut to clear. This can be really super valuable in some of these pieces, so you need to not pass it by and look it up. So here are some comps. Again, I have sorted by highest first. Always want to sort by highest first when you're kind of learning and doing your research on the most valuable of any kind of a thing. This is another one of those types of glass that can sell into the thousands. So you really want to take a deeper look if you find pieces of cut to clear. Again, it's the larger, more unusual pieces that are going to be your big money. But I would say it's good to pick up individual pieces of the glassware even. A single wine glass can still bring $50, $60, even $100 depending on the quality. And if you can't find the maker, because often they aren't signed, this is another one of those items where you really don't need it in order to make the good profits on these items. It's always great if you do know who the maker is, but don't drive yourself nuts trying to figure it out. The clues are in the actual shape of the cuts, the motifs used, and just the quality of the pieces. So those are things you want to be aware of. But this is definitely a type of glass that should be an eye catcher, especially if you find it out at the Goodwills or other thrift stores or yard sales. Pick this stuff up. It sells for really good money. This is a type of early American pressed glass, or EAPG. This is made by U.S. Glass, and it is called Mayflower Portland. You can see the heavy gild on the gold on there. Sometimes they did this. There's many of them that are decorated with a gold gild. Doesn't make them really any more valuable. It all comes down to the particular pattern and maker. This is more early American pressed glass. They've actually identified this one. It's Jeanette Baltimore Pear. This is a little creamer. They've got it for $12.50. You can see the little pear pattern it's part of it's pressed glass. It's part of the mold when they make the glass. And then this one, let's see if they say who done this one. They're just saying it's floral berries. So you could dig a little bit and you could figure out who the pattern is. There's some great websites out there for identifying the early American pressed glass. I'll share some of those down in the description. This glass right here that is purple has been artificially purpled in the sun. This is actually considered damaged glass. It's early American pressed glass. It was clear, and what happens is the ingredients that the glass is made of react to the sun and they turn the glass purple. Some people really, really love it. So a resaleability factor, it's great. It's not going to hurt you. But for the true purist collector, they won't buy it because it's damaged. So you've got two different markets on this type of glass. I kind of like the purple, so I'm okay with it. I'm not sure you can really see the silver in this, but this is a silver overlay, kind of a footed serving tray, or they're calling it a platter. I think of platters as more flat, not footed. But silver overlay glass, while it's super pretty, unfortunately, it doesn't bring a whole lot of resale value. So I am tending to stay away from it now. This glass right here is known as elegant glass. It is made in the Depression period. Let me see if I can get to where I can show you. There is a pattern there. These patterns are fairly easy to find. They do different etched florals and they're pretty distinct for the different patterns. Let's see if they've got this marked with a pattern. I don't think they do. Nope, they just called it a wine glass. But it's really pretty dainty glass. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the value that it used to have. This is a pattern made by Hazel Atlas, and it is called Florentine. And it's really quite unusual to find complete sets like this. You have got the pitcher and 6 of the taller glasses, and we're checking to see if it glows here. Because some Depression glass, of course, is going to glow because of the uranium or other minerals inside there that they used in the making of the glass. This one doesn't glow, but that's okay. Unfortunately, there's only 5 of those smaller glasses, but this is still a pretty stunning set. much more valuable to have the complete set, even though one is missing a glass there. $80 is about right on that picture, maybe a little on the high side, but definitely an in-person price that is okay. Here's another yellow depression glass. Now, depression glass comes in yellow, pink, blue, green. Yellow seems to be a little bit more on the rare side these days. I don't know why that is. So I'm always attracted to looking at the yellow because I don't see it as often. This is a rather plain design. Nothing really spectacular. And again, I checked to see if this glows, and you'll see me do that in a moment. I was talking, but there was really loud music, so I am actually doing a voiceover this time. There we go. So it had a very, very minor glow to it, like just really not a lot to it. And all that means is that whatever they used in the manufacturing of the glass didn't glow. It really doesn't add or detract from the value other than just a desirability for things to glow. This is glowy glass, is like the non-technical term. Hugely popular. It's uranium glass. That's what makes it glow. And let's just show that. I think this is actually going to pick up on the camera because it just glows so bright. This one's a glow, but not all green glass glows. Like this one just barely glows. So the content of the uranium in the glass is at different levels depending on when it was made and who made it. But this is what makes it so popular, is it just lights up under a black light. Some people call this Vaseline glass. This is not Vaseline glass. Vaseline glass is the color of Vaseline. It's a creamy color. This green is uranium glass. This is custard glass. Now, custard glass was also made with the uranium oxide, so it does glow like crazy. And even the reproductions are still made with that ingredient to make it glow. That's something I just found out. They say the way to tell the true older pieces is to hold it up to a light source. It should have a fiery opalescence. If it doesn't have that fiery opalescence, it's not the old stuff. This is a piece of Fenton, custard or satin glass. Fenton is really distinct. You will learn the Fenton feel and weight and coarseness if you pick up enough of the Fenton. So here we have two more examples of Fenton glass. This is a pink, and I'm going to show you. I think you're going to be able to see this label really clear. It's a basket, and on the bottom, let's see, does this one have a number? Yes, it does. Let's see if we can see it. Look at that iridescence. I can't quite make out what the number is on this piece. I think it's a 9. It's a 9, which means this is a 1990s piece of Fenton glass. And then the other little basket over here, this is known as silver lace. And you've got the violets. I believe that is, they call that violets in the snow would be the technical pattern. Now you'll see this one does not have an impressed logo, and it doesn't have the label, but it's a very, very clearly distinct Fenton pattern, and it is pre-1970s. You will see a lot of different shapes and sizes in the hobnail and colors. This is cranberry. This is the Fenton classic cranberry color. Very, very popular. Many different of their pieces are made in this cranberry, and the crimping. This is a really, really nice piece of Fenton. It's always great to find a piece that has its original label, because then you can really pick it up and feel that glass and know what that feels like. Fenton has a very, very distinct feel to it. It's a thicker glass, and there's the label right there. Now, you do have to keep in mind that these labels are sold on the aftermarket as well. So you really have to know the feel, the look, and then put that along with the label to know that you've got a piece of Fenton. They're also marked and an embossed mark on the bottom if they are post 1970. Before that, they just used the label. After 1970, they started putting it in the molds, and you can tell exactly when a piece is made because there'll also be a number that corresponds with that logo. So each decade they changed the number. So the 70s had no number, the 80s had an 8, the 90s a 9, and the 2000s have a 0. Here's another really clear example of a piece of Fenton. It's melt glass, hobnail, only this one does have a mark on it. It's got a patent, and then it's got the little mark down here, which I'm trying to make out what that number is down below the Fenton. I do think I see a 6. I think I see a 6. No, I see an 8. I see an 8. So it's 1980s. So what that tells me is that they started remaking the hobnail in the 1980s, when originally it came out in the 1950s. Here is your classic Fenton milk glass. This is the hobnail, 1950s. And you can see just the whiteness, the thickness, the kind of the coarseness of this glass. I've never been a big Fenton glass fan because of that. I like the more refined glass, but many people do love the Fenton glass. Now, the milk glass is probably the least popular of the Fenton glasses, but milk glass is making a comeback because the millennials really love it. So this is $14, which is a good price. Fenton also made shoes, and there is a big collectible market for, well, really anything Fenton. These shoes generally sell between like a $20 to $35 range is where most of them end up falling on eBay. Some higher, some lower, but there's a lot of them out there. There's also the Fenton animals, and again, there is a crazy wild amount of collectors of Fenton that will purchase these and add to their collections. So you really need to know which one has which value and look those up. Don't be afraid to look this stuff up because some of it sells for really good money. Here's another popular Fenton glass called slag glass. And Fenton's not the only one that makes slag glass, believe me. I think they're the only one that makes it in a hobnail though. This is wildly popular, and you can tell it because it's got the mixtures, the kind of the marble glass look. And it sells, yeah, that's a pretty good price. $28. That piece probably would sell for $30 and up on eBay. And then here's another one of those crazy kind of flower frog things. Has the Fenton mark on the bottom, so you definitely know it's Fenton. A really cool piece. You will come to be able to identify Fenton glass from a mile away. Now, this is newer Fenton glass, and by newer I don't mean like within the last 10 years. I mean like 90s, 2000s is considered newer Fenton. This is $65. Very decorated. And then this piece here looks to be some sort of like a collector edition. Glassed artistry for the next millennium, new century. So that's 21 collection. Well, there you go. So that gives you enough information to be able to run some really good comps and find out what that piece is worth. This pattern is known as moonstone. It's an opalescent. It's technically a white opalescent. You can see the kind of the fade that goes into the opalescence here. But the key is these little hobnaily pieces in there, which is what makes it moonstone. And it's kind of hit or miss on these. Westmoreland was another company that made milk glass back in the 1950s, and this right here appears to all be Westmoreland glass, and I can tell that because they're the ones who really went heavy on the grapes. And now this piece right here may actually be Fenton. And so this is a good example. I should take this over and compare this to the moonstone that I just showed you. See how the hobnails themselves are actually opalescent in this? It's got a much different look than a other piece. So there's two companies that get confused back and forth for being moonstone. But that little diamond point pattern is pretty classic Westmoreland. That is a really neat shaped picture, actually. I like that. But the grapes are almost always Westmoreland. Now, most people don't think of Westmoreland as being EAPG, but they indeed were around in the 1800s. This is shell and jewel pattern. It is kind of a textured frosted, not your traditional frosted, and it's got the shell. It's a really, really beautiful piece from the 1890s, and yet it's still only worth about $25 to $30, which is kind of mind-blowing to me. I really hope this glass makes a comeback, because just think how old this piece is. This is 30-year-old glass. 130-year-old glass that someone actually used as their functioning piece of glass back in the day. To me, it's just awesome. I love it. I wanted to make a comeback. But yes, this is also EAPG by Westmoreland. And what glass video would be complete without pointing out some jadeite? And you can see I've got my black light going on this, looking at the pieces that glow, because not all jadeite glows. Some of it does not glow. In fact, it is the Fenton jadeite, I believe, that does not glow. And most of these are Anchor Hocking, I want to say. What I found out was this entire collection is from a lady who collected it for many years, and she brought her collection to the antique mall to sell off. So you're not going to get a bargain in this booth. She knows what she's got. She knows what it's worth. This is a piece of McKee, and what I'm trying to show you here is the McKee mark, so that if you ever find that MCK mark, you'll know that is McKee glass. And many McKee pieces can be worth quite a bit of money. So McKee was a big maker of jadeite, but it's not one of the ones we generally think about as being a maker of jadeite. And this is Jeanette. Now this is not marked, but I am sure this is one of those cases where I am absolutely sure this is a dealer who is not mismarking this stuff. She knows what she's got. She has it all marked accurately, and she has it priced accurately. But it's a perfect booth to come and learn from. You know, you can get your hands on it. See the seams, see the glowing, see the difference between the different makers and the different patterns and all of that. It's pretty fascinating to just get your hands on it when you know it is marked correctly. You can see I'm playing with the black light because it's just fun. An interesting fact is that Vaseline glass also is made with the uranium oxide, as is the green glass, but the green glass had iron oxide, same stuff that makes rust. That's what makes the green color. I thought that was pretty interesting when I found that out. It's always fun to learn more about this stuff. Here's an interesting example of a vase that you would look at and go, I have no idea who makes this, except that this one does have its original label. It is Polish glass by Makora. So lots of Polish glass has these bright colors like this, and it can be confused with some of the cheaper Chinese glass because, well, they use the same colors and a lot of the same designs, so you have to look at quality to be the determining factor. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little dive into glass at the antique mall and you've gotten something enjoyable from it. If you have, please let me know in the comments and I'll keep doing more of this kind of stuff. If you hated it, well, you can let me know that too. But I will be making one on pottery and another one on mid-century items and maybe one on just some miscellaneous. I have those in the works as well. So be sure you're subscribed and hit the little notification bell so you know when I upload the next video. but I do that every day. Just FYI if you don't get the notification. All right. Come join me on Mondays for a live chat where we can talk more about, well, whatever you like. That's 1 p.m. Pacific time right here on the channel. So for now, go be profitable and make it fun. And we'll see you on the next one.